I hope that you were able to think about some small moments from your own life as well. If you didn't, then I invite you to do so in the week coming forward. Just notice where beauty touches you in small ways. And thank you, Julie, for that beautiful meditation. Today's service has a little backstory. You see, every summer when I take off for my summer break, a practice important in ministry because of the 24/7 nature of jobs like mine, which may be fading out, maybe for good reason in the coming years. Usually in my time off and my study time, I set some kind of goal for my time off and my study time that will become part of the structure of my first service back, which is usually around this time in August. For example, 2 years ago, when I drove across country in a van with my 2 dogs for some reason that I'm not quite sure now, it made a lot of sense in COVID, I'm not quite sure. I knew that my service would be about that, and in fact, you suffered through that. Some years it's been about haiku, some years it's been about the spiritual lessons of gardening, a topic which no doubt bears repeating. The problem with this year there were really 2. Number 1, I actually never went on vacation this summer. And number 2, the 1 week that I did take off, I managed to get the newest version of COVID, which is why I'm here with you today, masked. So my report about what I did on my summer vacation is not the stuff of inspiration. Herein lies the rub, except where it is. The truth is that this summer, I was doing what all of us have to do at some time, dealing with life on life's terms, that which could not be foreseen, the unexpected, the unwanted. And in some way, isn't that what meets us every day, more and more in the world in which we live? It's in the news. We have been shocked until we're beyond shocked. A nation that watches as our very right to democracy is debated in compromised courts, as the costs of centuries of environmental degradation begin to mount, as the habitable part of the world shrinks and we all face ethical dilemmas on a daily basis about who deserves what resources in the world. And amid all of this, we have watched distortions of people's size. Some people thinking they're so small, in fact, as small as an ant, which I'm taken to mention because there are some up here with me today, that they feel like they don't have the ability to make a difference. They feel so small, so condensed. And then others, painfully and dangerously, thinking that they are bigger than ethics, bigger than laws, bigger than governments, maybe even bigger than God, whatever that is. And so, I went back and forth the first week of July as I tried to come up with something that could be the topic of this service, because I knew by then that it wasn't likely I would have a very typical summer. At first, I thought it would be a great thing if I made the focus the way that we pay attention to the small details, like you all up here, ants. And because paying attention to small details is a great way of grounding ourselves when life is hard to handle. And in fact, that kind of mindfulness is what I thought I had planned to preach on. However, I discovered, much to my chagrin a couple weeks ago, that what I had actually written up and submitted to the Beacon was about the larger frame and how we look at the larger frame in times of difficulty. Slight shift there. The one thing, though, that I can say, though it was not particularly meditative or pretty, I got a lot of practice on both sides of the equation this summer, finding the joy in the small and remembering that there is a larger picture which helps us put even painful things in perspective. I had lots of opportunity to right-size my views. This summer, I spent a lot of time at work. And in the mornings and the evenings I walked, I took snapshots of small pleasures, what Aaron Nemi Longhurst calls contentments. I took a special pleasure this summer in making meals. It was a time of great solace, trying new recipes that took many hours and allowing myself to fully concentrate on the little acts of chopping and stirring and spreading. The fourth day of my COVID isolation, I actually tried out a recipe for sourdough bread because I was craving something besides broth. And I made 4 amazing, light, flavorful loaves. When eaten with honey, they gave temporary relief from the searing soreness of my throat, and that, let me tell you, was a holy moment. This July, a month that I suspect, I even hope, I will remember as one of the low points in my career, I spent a great deal of time at the copier documenting things, and a complication was that about the second week of July, a rat made its way, an actual rat, made its way into the Gilmartin building and began to live in the copier. The rat would wait until I was alone in the building. And then when I would hit that first button to turn on the machine and it would whir into life, she would shoot out across my feet. I found myself caught in this odd kind of metaphorical relationship with this creature who really added to my innate tendency to procrastinate because I could say to myself, oh my gosh, I'm just not up for that whole rat ejection thing today. I would tell myself at the end of a long, sad work day that, I'll wait till tomorrow when maybe the rat will not be with us. As, until almost the end of her ratty life, for she is, I have to tell you, no longer with us, I was the only one she greeted in this way. I came to feel that she could be coaxed outside and even enlisted others in a mad evening of rolling the copier up to the door and banging on it with broomsticks to get her to leave. Understandably, she thought we were absolutely nuts and dangerous, and she just hunkered down. After we saw her briefly, we didn't see her again. The sense that the world was off was enhanced when, after a year of delay in the delivery of our new copier, which we've been waiting for since last summer, we received a message that, in fact, they were coming right away to pick up the copier. This required us to have long conversations about the ethics of returning a copier with a rat living in it. We actually had to have meetings about this summer, adding to the feeling that the world was just a little bit off. The building is now rat-free. The copier is still with us. We need to right-size our world when life does not go as planned, which, as we are all very familiar with in this post-2020 world, has happened to almost all of us at some point. And some of that which is not planned is very painful. Life will, my friends, break our hearts, break them open and remind us that we are all in some way looking for that homeland that was sung about. Remind us that impermanence is at its core, as the Buddhism I'm always drawn to teaches us. The song from the monks at Plum Village, the one that we just saw, has been a song that has kept me going throughout what was a very difficult year of 2023. The community founded by Thich Nhat Hanh, whose words Linda Russell read as our chalice lighting, during his many decades of exile, speaks to this. It is a community dedicated to releasing people from the pain of false attachments, including to egotistical fantasies and formations. This community has also had to navigate their own attachments after their great leader's death last year. And the words that they sang are those of Thich Nhat Hanh, their great teacher, and the music by one of the monks. It celebrates both the permanence of 40 years of the community and something that their now deceased teacher always encouraged, finding new ways to teach about suffering and the release from suffering. He always told them, and so they did through this song. I love seeing the monks in their brown robes doing the words of that song, and they took their act on tour to the east coast of our nation in the spring. When I wrote to ask permission to use the song, they said sure, and that perhaps we could host them because they'd like to do a West Coast tour next year, which I think would be great. In a world like this, little practices of noticing the small, balancing beauties do matter. For me, one was hand watering from the rain barrels, waters that I collected during the summer. The practice is embodied like a slow yoga dance or any other physical practice. It brings me more into the world. And as the plants bloom and thrive, especially my redwood tree, which has had an easier summer because of the winter rains, I feel connected to a sense of hope that perhaps somehow we must not forget to act. Secrets and isolation are what we are all too prone to in a world where we feel vulnerable. So many of us are seeking love, which is why we are vulnerable when our trust is violated. Now more than ever, I am glad to be part of a faith where we don't claim to have one truth that fits all, and we don't claim that anyone or any being does. As sad and sorry as my July was, it would have been unbearable if I had needed to believe that it was all part of a grander plan and had to make some kind of complicated calculus out of all of that, or if I believed that I was solely responsible to address it all. That is the stuff of delusion, which leads to the great harm that people can do to one another. AI, those two words together, two letters together, has been in the news for many reasons. Those two letters, though, also form one of the words for love in Japanese. And as Erin Nimi Longhurst notes, that is the word for not romantic love, but mutual, unshakable love. Not seeking its own satisfaction, rather through giving. And to that, this community has given witness. All of these small things are our access points to the greatest frames. We are meaning-making creatures, and this is something we need, especially when faced with the jagged sides of human existence. To remain balanced in our own view of ourselves, we need to be in relationship with something larger than ourselves, even if it is just the imperfection of community, or the result can be tragic and dangerous. Throughout the hours this summer, I tried to listen to the words of the hymn, to what the Spirit says do, and all I could hear was bear witness, seek love, and connection. Because in fact, we touch the largest frames of meaning through our willingness to treat each of us as if we are truly deserving of respect. And despite all the flaws in human community, we still have the greatest power, which is to see where mistakes have been made and begin again in love, those of us who are capable of such larger love. In that place where faith meets persistence, the Spirit grows and we let our heart rest in a holy place. You know, sometimes it just seems like there's a rat living in the copier. And we need something to be bigger than we are. And sometimes we just need to pay attention to the very small details that hold us together. Embracing those holy fragments and remembering that we are neither alone nor omnipotent, that we live in a world with ugliness and still find our homeland in beauty. Together, in this time when so much is broken, let us always bear witness to the power of the quest for wholeness.